Hey guys, I wanted to show you a cool new product I just got. This product's by VIAIR. They sent me out their Road Warrior Constant Duty Onboard Air System. It is 2 compressors and one 2.5 gallon tank, along with a whole bunch of stuff to make it all work together. I'm going to talk a lot in this first part, so I'll try to leave some chapters down below if you want to skip around right to the install. But let's talk about the stuff that's on the table. Let's start with the accessories. We got a couple different things here. We got a air chuck for your dually applications. We got a tire inflation gauge. This one's digital, so that'll be really nice. We got a blowgun, and then we got this that screws on right to your Schrader valve and chucks up to your air gun. We also have 2 coiled 30-foot extended air hose. This will chuck up to wherever you decide to put your air, and then you just chuck up to your whatever accessory you want to use. And it comes in this cool bag, so you can zip it all up and store it wherever you want to in your vehicle. So pretty nice there. We also have all your various instructions for wiring and plumbing, a couple stickers, some product specs, and some warranty stuff. Moving on, we got we got the tank itself. Like I said, it's 2.5 gallons. There's let's see, 2 ports on this side, 2 on this side, 1 right here, and then 1 underneath. These compressors are identical. You can pause and read all the specs right here. But these combined together will produce about 3.5 cubic feet per minute. You got your relays, 1 relay per compressor. These are nice and labeled, sealed, so you don't have to worry about moisture getting in there. All your various fittings, your drain, your safety valves, plugs, unions, reducers. This is your air relocation kit. This is your air chuck where you can mount wherever you want to on your vehicle. Pressure switch. You got your air gauge, and this will illuminate once it's wired. And then your compressor's on-off switch. Fuse holder. A couple fuses. These are 60 amp. Airline. All this is your this is your air filter housing for your compressor. This is just a plug. Take that plug out, screw it on, screw the filter onto your compressor. And if for some reason you want to mount this elsewhere, maybe where you're putting your compressor or don't have enough airflow or something, you can use all of this kit right here and relocate it. So you'll just plumb in some lines and relocate your filter to somewhere else so your compressor can have nice clean air. You got your compressor mounting hardware. So this is your air manifold. Pretty excited about this. 6-port manifold. So you can plumb your tank, have 1 line coming from your tank into here, and then run your separate lines to whatever it is you want to use it for right off this manifold. Pretty excited about that. Various wires and fuses and whatnot, connectors. And then I got 3 other things that did not come with this kit that I decided to go for. 2 of them are the same. They're this. It's their Pro Series Air Source Relocation Kit. And that looks like this. 15 feet of air line. You got your air chuck, a couple different air fittings, and some hardware. And that hardware is for this bracket. So you can mount this bracket wherever you want to on your vehicle and have your air chuck right there. And then also this nice rubber cover for your air chuck so you don't get any water or dirt in there. And then last but not least, inline pressure regulator. If you're going to run any air tools, air lockers, anything else, it's good to have one of these. So that's pretty much it here. I'm going to show you a couple other things. I got a mounting plate. I'm going to mount all this stuff to, and then mount that whole plate underneath my bus, and then start plumbing and wiring from there. So let me show you that. So this is the mounting plate that I'm using. As you can see, I already got all the holes drilled. I got 4 attachment points that I'm going to use to mount the plate to the underside of the bus, and then I'm going to mount everything else to this plate. I'm going to mount this plate to the bus using what's called a riv nut. It's a rivet that has threads in it, and I'll have a link below if you're interested in this. A pretty cool tool. You just thread this on your rivet gun here, and then you just squeeze it together. And there you go. This part will obviously stay in the hole that you just drilled, and you will only see this, and then your bolt will thread right in. So I'll show you where I'm going to mount this once we get underneath the bus, but pretty cool tool. Excited about this. And let me show you what this looks like when everything's all laid out. This is pretty much what everything's going to look like. Nothing's mounted or wired or plumbed yet, but you can see I got my 2 compressors, 2 relays, obviously my tank, manifold, pressure regulator. Not sure if those are the fittings I'm going to use. I'll know once I get under there and start plumbing it. And pressure switch. This will obviously be flipped upside down. Make a little bit more sense later. 6-gauge wire. These are my Anderson power pole connectors. This is just the plastic housing. This is the connector itself. Great product. Used this in the past. Had really good luck with it. And then obviously my air gauge that I will have an airline come off the tank to this gauge, and then a wire from the pressure switch mounted to my on-off switch, and some more fittings. So that's pretty much it. Let's get to the install. So I decided to go ahead and put some riv nuts in where the tank's going to go, and also where the manifold's going to go, and show you how this thing works. I got my riv nut already threaded on. Put it in the hole, and then just squeeze it together. There you go. Pretty simple. Here's another view of kind of more of the underneath, what it looks like. That's it. I'm gonna do a couple more. I'll bring you back. So here's how the plate looks all mounted up. Made a couple changes. I put some riv nuts in to mount the tank, and then I put some riv nuts in to mount this manifold, and also 2 riv nuts for just this corner part where the air compressor is going to mount. These parts were just a little bit difficult to get my hand up underneath and behind this plate, so I went ahead and did that. This is just kind of mocked up. I'm going to loosen all those bolts and remove them, and just add a little bit of blue Loctite, torque them all down, and then move on with mounting everything else to the plate. Got the tank all mounted up. Went pretty smoothly. Now it's time for the compressors. Okay, so I'm about ready to wire everything up, and I just wanted to take some time and explain how a relay works and how to wire a relay. If you know all that stuff already, just go ahead and skip ahead. This is for the folks who don't know how this works. So here's the wiring diagram that VIAIR gives you. So I got my 12 volt fused. I got my 12 volt fuse going to pin 30. I got my ground wire, and all these are labeled. Makes it real easy. So I got my 85, my ground wire, and I got my 30 right there. When I turn this, this is just hooked up to a 12 volt jump box, and then I have a 12 volt test light right here. When I turn on this jump box, nothing should happen, right? We just have electricity here, and we have ground here. We need to activate this switch. It's not wired up yet, but I'll show you. We need to activate this switch and turn it on to pass electricity down to pin 86, which will energize this relay, create a magnetic field, close this contact, and power on the compressor. So when I turn this on, nothing happens, which is great. When I connect this black wire right here, this black wire is our goes to our pressure switch, and then goes up to our on-off switch. I don't have that in this equation right now, so I'm just going to simulate it. When I touch this wire to positive, this test light will light up red and say 12.7 volts, and you'll also hear the relay click. So compressor's off, compressor's on. It's pretty simple, and hope that made sense. So I got almost all the wiring done. I just want to talk about this for a second. This is a Anderson power pole connector, and this is the plastic housing. Okay, a little difficult to film underneath here. I'm gonna freehand it. I got both my compressors mounted. I got my two relays up here mounted. I got my manifold mounted and sealed. I got all the plugs and the fittings in. And then I got my air regulator mounted and plumbed. I got my main line coming from the tank to the regulator, and I got this air line going up underneath the tank, mounted to the manifold. And now I'm going to run my air lines for these two fittings, and it's going to be for my chuck valves, which I'm going to mount one about right here, right by my drain. This is my gray tank for my plumbing, and then I'm going to mount the other one on the other side. I'll show you in a bit. Got all the wiring done. All I need is this wire right here. That's from my pressure switch. I need to run that up to my toggle on-off switch. And then this is just a T-valve with an air line that I need to run up to the air gauge. So let's put in the chuck valve. All right, so this is the Pro Series air relocation kit. This is the bracket for it, and I'm just using some self-tappers. This is just the cover. a nice rubber cover to keep all the trash out of your chuck valve. And I'll just demonstrate how I'm sealing this. VIAIR does not recommend thread tape. They recommend thread sealant. So if you're not familiar with how this works, just basically a bunch of goo, and just squeeze it out. Put some dabs of it on there, on your threads. And then just take your finger and smear it on there. Makes a mess, but it'll seal it. Usually with my other air systems, I have always used thread tape and thread sealant, or commonly referred to as pipe dope. And so I'll kind of double seal it. And I've had really good luck with that method. We'll see how many leaks we have with this, hopefully none. And then you just thread it in. There's really nothing to any of this, but I haven't showed it on camera, so I'm gonna do this, seal this up, and then I'm gonna install it. Walter, come on, I'm trying to film. Here, stand right there. Hey guys, that's Walter. Let me show you something cool. Take this cap off. Huh? It's not on. How cool is that? And just for reference, where that is on the vehicle, as you can see, it's right behind the driver's side door. So I can take this 30-foot air hose, I can air up this tire, use air tools, work on my motor if I need to, and then I'll show you what the other side looks like. All right, so let's talk about cutting the airline. So this is just a scrap piece of airline, and here's some of your options. I wouldn't recommend these, I wouldn't recommend these, and I would definitely recommend these. These are tubing cutters. This pairs by Blue Point. As you can see, it's got a nice sharp blade with a point. These are some cable cutters by Nipex. Great cable cutters and wire cutters. Decently sharp. And these are your run-of-the-mill dikes or diagonal cutters. Okay, so let's start with these. This is probably what most people will have. When you want to focus, you want this edge to be nice and smooth, because when it mates up to the surface, you want that to be as smooth as possible so that there's no leaks. Let me show you a bad example. Take your cutters. Number one, that's at an angle. That was my fault. But number two, you see how it deformed this line? It's a pretty hard line, right? Here's a circle, here's a oval or diamond, right? Would not recommend these. Cable cutters. Much better. Still deformed and still just a little jagged. Then you got your tubing cutters. Nice and smooth, still very much a circle, Guys, this is the only way to go. You don't have to get the Blue Point name brand, but get you a solid set of tubing cutters if you are going to do this job. So crimping these things pretty easy. This is your 6-gauge wire and your 6-gauge connector. All I do is just kind of get a reference of how far I need to strip back. Just mark it with my finger. Using this tool, there's a blade in there and it's adjustable. So depending on the thickness of your wire will determine the thickness of your insulation, and you want to adjust this blade to cut just the insulation and you don't end up cutting the copper wire that's in there. So you just put it on kind of like so. Hopefully you're not dizzy. And then, looks like I didn't go as deep as I should have, but that's all right. And then just clean up some of this paper that's in there. Now take your crimpers, make the proper adjustment to your gauge wire. This is already adjusted. Make sure your connector is in there. And then I'll just kind of lightly put some pressure on it, make sure everything's lined up good, make sure the wire's fully seated in the connector, and then just crimp down. There you go. So the inside of this connector, this plastic housing rather, is pretty tight. So I tried to use some heat shrink and end up having to cut it off because the heat shrink was a little too thick. So I'm going to use some liquid tape, liquid electrical tape. This stuff's great. It's a kind of a liquid glue, and I'm just going to dab it around. And then to put this connector in this housing, basically just shove it in there, but you just want to make sure you got it in the right direction. This is a little metal tab that gets depressed once the connector's in there. And there's only 2 ways to do it. You want to make sure that this little ridge right here is pushing down, so we got it upside down. So you want it to be pushing down over this metal piece in here. So when you pull out this connector, this wire doesn't come with it. Let's see if I can show you. All right, in the electrical compartment now, I got my power and ground ran from my compressors. Got everything ran underneath the bus, drilled a hole right there. And now I'm going to mount these wires on my Victron Links distributor. As you can see, I got 2 open slots, so not a lot of room to film in here. So I'll bring you back when I'm done. All right, now that this is all done, I'm going to move on to mounting the air gauge and wiring up the pressure switch. guys, get you up to speed here. Here's my control panel for my various lights, bathroom lights, house lights, 110 plug, and then a couple switches. These two are empty. I'll show you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna mount my gauge, flush mounted right in there, and then I'm gonna wire my switch up to this guy, which is not being used. And I went ahead and dug all these screws out, and I'm gonna pull this out, move some wires out from behind here, drill through, and then go on with the install. Just a quick note about this air gauge. For my application, I have a wall that's about right here, and so I don't have any way for an airline to naturally form and connect right here. So I'm going to use a right angle fitting, and then I've decided to use a push connect. So from VIAIR, they say to not remove or tamper with this fitting, and they say that the gauge is preset, pre-tested, or pre-calibrated, I guess, and you can see it threads in right there. It's just a compression fitting, but my interpretation of that is that we're metering air through this hole, and if I was just going to put this in there, you can see how much more airflow we would have. So I've decided to just leave this on, and I'm going to thread this right angle on, put this quick connect on, and that's I'm going to run this gauge. All right, so here we are so far. I got my gauge in, I got my switch wired up, got my airline ran, and now I had already ran these two empty switches behind my kitchen and over to my fuse box. I just have them hanging loose. I got to connect them to power, and then we should be able to turn this thing on and see what happens. All right, don't mind the mess. This is what I meant when I got the fuse, switch number 4 fuse. I already got this wire ran. I did it when I built the bus. Here's the back of my 12-volt fuse box and my 110 breaker box. So I'm gonna get this wired up and turn it on. Okay, everything's wired up, everything's plumbed. I'm gonna turn it on for the first test and make sure it gets up to pressure. It should be 200 psi, and I'm also gonna go around and check for air leaks. So here we go. Perfect. Bring you back when it gets up to full pressure. All right, sorry about the wind noise. Here's what it looks like on the control panel. It's been on for about 15 minutes now after it got up to pressure. I got about 10 pounds that I'm losing. So I got a small air leak, but I'll get that fixed, and I'll putty in these holes and paint over them. Other than that, it's working pretty good. And I got this light wired up to the switch, so when I turn it off, light turns off, turn it on, and the pressure is at 165 or lower, then the compressors will kick on.